Hey guys, how's everybody doing? This is Craig from Bass Lessons Melbourne, and today for our player profile interview, I'm joined by Mr. Felix Pastorius.
Hello everyone.
It's great to have you here, man.
Than't you so much for having me, Craig.
Appreciate you taking the time.
And so early too on a Sunday, I'm sorry.
That's alright. Sometimes it's good to get up and it's going to be a nice day.
It is going to be a beautiful day.
So
yeah,
get out and enjoy the sun.
Absolutely. That's my plan.
This isn't your first time in Melbourne?
It isn't my first time in Melbourne.
What brings you back this time?
I was here in September, and within a month after booking my first opportunity to come here, which I was so excited to do, I got a call from Cindy Blackman, Santana, and she said that she had an offer to maybe come out to Australia. I was like, yes, absolutely, let's do it. And I was really excited to be able to do it within 6 months, come back here, and to see both the, I guess, cold-ish time, that it wasn't really that cold, it was beautiful back then, also September, and then summertime as well. And we did a week over at Bird's Basement, and it was a lot of fun. Zakai Curtis on piano, a Railing Booty Neck on guitar, and we've been playing for off and on for 10 years, and it had been a minute since I'd played with Cindy, so it was a lot of fun. Just get together again. The band was back together again.
Rehearsals?
Kind of. We didn't do anything in the States. We got here, we did a load-in sound check rehearsal.
Right.
Yeah.
And because it's a fun show.
Yeah.
It's a cool show. Like, what's the kind of musical framework, so to speak? Like, where does that come from, and how does it work?
So the majority, we're really up there just, we're following her direction. Cindy has the fairly prominent voice on the drums, and she has an idea that she's looking for, and we just try to, as a band, as the guys she hires, and as her friends, try to support her as much as possible. I mean, a lot of it, contextually, I guess, it would be coming from more of like a Tony Williams Lifetime type of thing, a little more aggressive, harder jazz stuff that was going on during that time period. We all just kind of try to fill roles that make sense within that music and with what she's doing on the drums. But it's wide open too. It's kind of whatever we want to do, but I think we're trying to aim towards that kind of stuff.
I'd say that definitely sounds like that's the vibe that's happening.
Yeah.
And how did you kind of connect with Cindy in the first place?
Yeah, Cindy, she was actually my first gig when I moved to New York, my first opportunity to gig outside of New York, which was great. I did it. I made it. I was actually, funny enough, I was just talking about this last night. I moved to New York, and I bumped into this photographer that I know from being on the road in and around. I can't remember where I met him. Asheville, I think. Oh yeah, it was Asheville. It was Zambiland, I think.
Where, sorry?
It was called Zambiland Jam. It's this thing that hosted by Jeff Sipe from Aquarium Rescue Unit, the drummer.
Okay.
And it's just this. They don't do it anymore. I don't know the last time they did it, but it was basically this free for all with a bunch of musicians, and it was crazy. Tons of musicians on stage and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And Oteil and Kofi and the Wootens and Mike Gordon and just lots of random. Who knows who's going to be there?
Guys who are good at jamming.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it might be 5 bassists on stage, and who knows? But yeah.
Then everyone leaves.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But so that's where I met Michael Weintraub, photographer, and he knew I was in New York, and he was like, "I'm working on this book, my first main publication of my photos," and it was this idea where he replaces the head with the instruments. It's called Instrument Head. It's a really great book, actually. Yeah, it's great, and he got a lot of known musicians, and he found very clever, unique ways to position their instruments in front of their face.
Right.
So some of them are doing different things with their hands, and it's a really cool concept. Anyways, I was like, great, yeah, of course, I'll come by. And I went to his studio loft area space in Williamsburg, and a saxophonist was there, Jay Rodriguez, that it is a family friend, but we had never really hung, and we were like, oh shit, this is great. We get to meet, and he was like, man, I got this gig you might be perfect for. And literally it was like my first month there. I couldn't believe it. And Cindy was on the drums, and we kept in contact. And next thing you know, she was taking me on I think our first gig was actually a one-off. It was in Philly at the museum. But yeah, it's been great. So it's not a whole lot of gigs over the last 10 years, but when we do get together, we have a lot of fun. We've done some tours in Europe, and it's special. She's great. Wonderful band leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got that impression at the gig.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you moved to New York?
Oh man, how old am I now? Yeah.
I think we're similar age. 82.
You're 17 also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be 37 in June. So I guess I was 27. It was April of 2009. Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Anniversary.
Yeah, thanks. Oof, I made it that long and living in New York. I've always loved New York. I've been going to New York since I was a kid. My mom started taking my brother and I there when we were like little kids. Like 87 was my first time in New York. From Florida, yeah. And I've always loved New York, and I always loved going there and experiencing the music and the art and the food and the people, and and not having to go to bed early, and
You can't tell me what to do, Mom.
We're in New York. What are you talking about?
Never sleeps.
Exactly.
And what prompted that move in the first place?
I trying to get more serious about playing music.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I have throughout my life and career, I guess, as a musician, I have these points where I always feel like, okay, now I'm taking it serious. Okay, now I'm really gonna take.
Now I've made it. Now I'm on the.
Well, not necessarily made it, but now I'm really gonna try to work at it. And focus and and put myself in the fire or whatever whatever analogy or term you want to use. I had a lot of great opportunities to play music growing up, and I don't turn any of that down, but I also never went to school, and I never had a teacher. And for me, I know that I spent a lot of time maybe doing too much, messing around and not focusing enough, which is okay. We all can do that.
Exactly,
It's all, there's nothing wrong with it.
But it all has to filter into how you sound.
Well, and not only that, but also I have to mean it, or you have to want it and mean it. For me, it's like, if I wasn't willing, there's no reason for me to force myself or also feel bad about the fact that I maybe didn't fulfill something in terms of how much practice or how much work or anything I put into it. Because if I didn't want it back then what was the point?
Exactly, yeah.
So, at one point I had moved back to Florida. I was spending some time on the West Coast, and I moved back to Florida, and I was playing in a couple different projects, and I just found myself not really feeling great about not the projects themselves, but where I was musically and
trajectory.
Yeah, exactly.
Opportunities.
Right, that's right. And I was like, I tried to move to New York when I was like 24, and we stayed like for a month maybe, and ended up just driving around the country and being a 24-year-old, And
do you still feel a little bit like you're 24? I do.
I mean, until I look in the mirror,
Yeah,
that's about it.
Until you wake up the next morning.
Yeah, and my back is hurting and my knees hurt, and I go and try to play sports with my nephews and nieces, and they just whoop my butt and everything, and I feel really old. But yeah, and then it was just like, I'm in Florida, and it's great to be back home, and it's great to be around family and friends, but musically, this isn't necessarily, I'm not going to have. And especially, it's changed a lot. Miami's gotten a lot better. South Florida's gotten a lot better within the last 10. Somehow I leave and it gets better. I don't know. Maybe I was holding Florida back. Maybe that's what it was. All of a sudden there's a ground up.
Guys, he's gone now.
Yeah, right, exactly. Ground Up Fest is there all of a sudden. There's a whole art scene that's revitalized. And anyways.
You can stick this around there if you want.
Yeah. And so I was just like, you know what? Let's see what happens. And I moved to New York, and I was crashing on couches and with friends for the first few months, and yeah, it snowballed into me being more proactive, and I got a weekly.
Because putting yourself in that position, you
Right.
have to.
That's right.
You have to make it happen.
That's
you have
right.
to make it work.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I've moved to a couple of cities, and it's just like, okay, well, if you call yourself a bass player,
Right.
now's your chance
Right.
to prove it, kind of thing. Go out and meet
Totally,
people. And
that's right, and work on that aspect also of being a musician, because it's not all about being home like this and practicing. It's working on your craft. Yeah, you got to be personable. You have to be able to interact with people, be responsible, and yeah.
Sometimes just do the job.
Yeah, for sure. And that's another thing too. Yeah, just do the job. The other thing too is when you move to a new city, it's so conducive to one thing that I really it's not my motto necessarily, but I talk about it with most of my students, is like, when you're in a situation like that, you have to almost say yes to every gig, because you need to get out there. You need to be seen. And I love saying yes to almost every gig. Almost every gig. No. But really, first of all, it's a blessing if you can even make a living as a musician.
Absolutely.
So the idea to even turn down a gig is kind of like, wow, that's, who are you, kind of thing. But yeah, it's built right into it. You're in a new city. You have to say yes to everything and anything. And I love doing that, because I never went to school and I never had a teacher. That's how I learned the most, to be honest.
And oftentimes the gigs where you think, maybe I shouldn't do this gig, a lot of the time those are the gigs that lead on to
absolutely 100.
stuff.
Well, I mean, the whole reason I was here in September was because I was with A$AP Rocky, and I got that gig because he hired the band that I've been working with the last handful of years called Onyx Collective, and I got on that band because I played this gig in Jersey. I filled a sub for this bassist who couldn't make it, and Isaiah Barr, the saxophonist and co-leader of Onyx Collective, was filling in, playing some horn parts, and we're like, oh yeah, you can play. Oh, he was like, oh yeah, you can play too. I was like, all right, we'll keep in contact. And it was a gig that I would not have been able to well, I wouldn't have taken it, or who knows how I would have even gotten on that gig in this random place, meeting this person that I probably never would have crossed paths, because there's an age difference as well too.
Yeah.
I'm the grandpa in the group, but all of a sudden it goes from me filling in, from a friend offering me a gig. Hey, can you do this gig? It's like one rehearsal and a gig for like $200. I was like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
To I'm in Australia playing with A$AP Rocky.
That's
so
it.
Never say no to a gig.
Yeah, but if you do get a gig, be prepared.
Nah, that's right. That's right. Always.
Because like you're saying, that's kind of your shop window as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Always.
Yeah. And so the kind of musical environment that you were kind of grew up in Florida, music was kind of in the household, I'm guessing, and stuff like that. You had access to stuff.
Yeah.
Did you play other instruments as well?
Yeah. So my mother got Julius and I involved. Our mom was more of a catalyst in a lot of ways in terms of making music available to my twin brother Julius and I, even when our father wasn't around much. And not only that, but also in terms of knowing what a path of musicianship can also lead to, in terms of being busy and being away from family, and having priorities that maybe aren't necessarily conducive to building a family, which is a reality, especially for a famous musician or a working musician, and especially at that time too, in 70s and 80s. It was a totally different scene, and the travel schedules and the way people connected and were interacting with each other, completely different than what it is now. You know, you can have a family now and and do FaceTime with your kids.
I hope so.
Yeah, no, exactly, absolutely. So even going through all that stuff, she still encouraged us. So when we were 5, she put my brother and I on violin. Which was brutal, from what I remember.
For everyone.
Yeah, for everyone. So it didn't last long, and then we took some piano.
Okay.
When we were 7, which helped immensely.
I think piano at an early age definitely helps.
Yeah.
Give you that kind of broad base of music.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it wasn't classically trained stuff, but nonetheless, just I think a familiarity with that instrument as well goes a long way.
Just understanding.
It's independent.
Bass part and melody and
exactly.
harmony.
It's independence of hands. It's
rhythm.
It's rhythm exactly, and like you're saying, the compositionally harmony,
exactly,
everything. Yeah. So did that for a little bit too, but listened to a lot of music. That was really the majority of. Or had the opportunity to go see a lot of live music too. Actually, one of my earliest memories I can remember seeing a band was, and I'm not sure which one was first. And they're both kind of cool considering what I've been doing and who I've played with. But I definitely saw, there used to be a venue called Musicians Exchange in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And it was this place that was part music store, part rehearsal spaces, and a venue all together upstairs. And tons of people played there, and it was kind of the hang, and it was the spot to play for a long period of time, actually. My dad played there many, many times. And in fact, the guy who used to work a lot, the security guard, used to babysit us. Sorry, Mom, it's okay. You left us in the car and let the security guard watch us while you went upstairs.
It was a different time.
It was a different time, totally different time. And oh wait, where was I going with this?
One of the first bands.
Oh yes, sorry, sorry. Yellow Jackets. They had set up a stage outside in the parking lot, and I remember seeing Jimmy Haslip standing on the stage, and he looked like a giant. He's a big guy.
He's a
big guy, but he's also standing on the stage, and I was like 5, I think, or 6 or something. And I remember looking at this guy. I was like, "What? This guy's humongous." And that. It was either that or Santana, which Cindy's now married to Carlos. And I remember being, I was super young. We were like all in the tub, like me and my cousins or something. And my mom, my Aunt Holly were on their way out, and they're like, we're gonna go see some music. And for some reason, my mom offered it to me and was like, do you want to go? And I was like, sure, why not?
Oh yeah, what does it mean?
Yeah, exactly. And we walked to the back of, I don't remember which venue. It was a large venue in South Florida. And I remember we just walked up to the back door and did one of those, knocked on the door, and my mom introduced herself and said, Carlos invited us out. And next thing you know, he closed the door, and then Carlos opens up, hey, and we're hanging out backstage and seeing music. So for me, that was a huge part of also the whole, learning music for sure, learning an instrument, but also learning the
environment.
Yeah. The humanity behind the musicianship and the music world, and
and the connections,
totally.
Most of my circle of friends, close friends, whatever, are involved in music in some shape or form.
Right.
It is a world that you're entering into. Like, it's not like you finished your job at 5 and you come home and you're no longer the office clerk. It's like you're kind of always a musician.
Well, it's also, and not only that, but it's also, well, yes, you are, but it depends on your definition of musician also, because a lot of times people's definition, or what they see someone standing on stage, and that's what they see. Yeah. That's how they picture them all the time.
Tip of the iceberg.
That's who they are 24/7, when in fact that's only them maybe 2 hours a night.
Yeah.
And that's when they're on the road.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other world of being husbands and fathers and wives and aunts and you know, being actual people. Which is crazy for some people to even get into the. And I meet people still nowadays, and they're like, "Wait, Jocko had kids?" I was like, "Yeah, he had a whole family."
Of course he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got quite a big family unit, or like extended family, and
yeah. I mean, yeah. On on my father's side and my mom's side, there's a decent size. I met someone recently. Who's got like 41 first cousins, and it's not like that. Rita Satch, actually. 41 first cousins. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's a big family.
I know. So it's not like that, but yeah, and most of them are still down in Florida. And yeah, my father had 4 children, and now at this point, 6 grandchildren. And yeah, but it's just funny to think that, you know, there's a complete disconnect sometimes, but it makes sense because, I mean, look at the way that people are idolized, and look at the way that they're portrayed in social media. And
I mean, same would be for actors, you know.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
I mean, even me, I wouldn't really have a proper understanding of what you would go through before the movie comes out, you know, in terms of script readings and all that kind of stuff.
Totally.
I'm sure it's just as much as you know, musicians.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You think you'd ever end up back in Florida?
Yeah, absolutely. It's my home. I love that place. And the majority of my family's still down there. And I don't love them as much, but no, yeah, it would be great to move back there. And again, the music scene's changing, and it's becoming more conducive to becoming creative and being around the right type of funding too. I mean, that's a huge part of being a musician and an artist too, is not only trying to find the voice, but finding the people that are willing to invest, maybe not necessarily into you, you know, but the venues or
infrastructure.
Stuff. Absolutely. And I feel like it's happening down there right now.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a possibility that I'll move there. New York's been great.
Yeah, but it's a grind.
Yeah, it is a grind.
Maybe would you ever consider teaching in a institute or something?
I would do that. I love teaching. Yeah, that's something I've thought about, and you know, coming from a place of I don't have a degree, but you know, the world is changing constantly. And look, Victor Wooten's teaching at Berkeley now, and he never went to school either. I'm not saying I'm Victor Wooten, but I'm just saying it's possible that you can, you know, not have a degree if you are capable of you know,
communicating ideas.
Yeah, that's really all it is. And you finished my line because I wasn't possible to communicate my idea at all. So I'm a terrible teacher, apparently.
But you know, it is true. Like, because some of the best players don't make great teachers.
Oh, it's so true. Well, it's the same thing in sports.
Do this.
It's the same thing in sports. Some of the best athletes are terrible coaches or terrible commentators on television. They have no personality whatsoever, and they can't convey what you know.
Because you have to have a certain degree of empathy. You have to understand
100%,
what it's like for that student sitting there when you're going, no, it's this, and you put your hand here. Remember what it was like for you.
Right, totally.
You know, and understand that, and patience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've thought about possibly doing, you know, institution or you know, school. I know, insane asylum, and but I really enjoy doing one-on-one teaching a lot, or smaller group teaching. I feel like I can communicate a lot better, and like I never go into I've done some teaching over at like the Ruins camp, and I've done some over at the Warwick camp, and I've done some clinics on my own too, I've sat in on a ton of clinics with Jeff Coffin over the last almost 20 years. I've been playing with him, which is crazy, and I never go into it with any pre-plan of what I'm going to teach. I'd much rather it be an intuitive thing that is based off of what it is that the student needs and what it is that I can somehow possibly fulfill in terms of either bridging a gap or showing them a direction.
Yeah.
You know, and
I think after you've been playing for long enough and teaching for long enough, you're kind of comfortable to do that because you've got this kind of wealth of experience and knowledge where you can go, all right, this is maybe something you might need.
And then not only that, but also secretively, don't tell anyone. But I feel like I can learn more too. Actually, to be honest, if I'm interacting with a student more one-on-one, than a broad stroke of this is what we're going to learn today. Yeah, I'm just regurgitating something that I've.
Essentially, you're just like a living book.
Right. Basically, that's right. Totally.
Context, yeah. And that's why I like doing like the video-based lessons thing where like I find it hard because you got to talk the whole time. You got to do the whole lesson. Whereas in a real life situation, you go, it's to try this, and then you get the feedback, and then it's a two-way thing. Right. Whereas like the lecture or the clinic or the online thing is just a one-way.
Absolutely. Straight. No, I know. I don't know how some of you guys do it. Yannick, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, he's another level.
Yeah, and Scott too. I mean, it's great what those guys do, and they've changed the landscape of teaching too. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, and there's definitely merit in that, and there's definitely a future for that. It's just difficult to sit in front of the camera with your bass and go, is this making sense yet?
Right, exactly. Raise your hand if you don't get this. Yeah.
Maybe to talk a little bit about your experience at Vic's Nature Camp.
Totally.
That was a formative thing for you?
Yeah, so my brother Julius and I and our friend Adam Lucas, we were all invited to go to his camp. One of his first ones, I don't remember specifically if it was the first camp or the second one.
So this is a little while ago then?
Yeah, a little while ago. And we were invited to go there, not as students and not as teachers, just to hang out, which was wonderful, but we can be involved with as little or as much as we wanted to. And that was really, really great to be around and just to see that type of, because that to me that was much closer to the type of schooling that I was doing with myself at that point. It was so building fires and doing yoga in the morning and tracking and it's a really wonderful experience. I was actually just talking to Cindy about this last week too. I would love to maybe try to get her and the band over there, do a clinic one day if we're ever, if it comes to that, or we're capable in the neck of the woods. But it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's like 50 minutes outside of Nashville, which is beautiful too. I think that's a huge part of why I'm so drawn to it. Also, is the removal of it being within this, it can be sterile, at least. Yeah. Aesthetically, a lot of times it's sterile, not necessarily sterile with the students and the teacher, but just your surroundings.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to be out in the middle of nowhere, and you're walking in between like cabins and places as you're rotating with teachers, and it's just a different thing. And being out in fresh air and having a different association with music,
different perspective.
It's really, really quite something. I went to a couple of those when I was younger, and then at one point, Vic offered me, an opportunity to teach at a couple, and I've done that as well. And it's wonderful. It's a lot of fun.
You get how many kind of students attend it? Like, what's the?
It depends. It fluctuates.
Yeah.
And but on average, I would say there's probably about maybe 15 to 20 students per class.
Okay.
But it's per group, and sometimes there's 4 or 5 groups.
Okay, so about 100.
Yeah.
100 or so.
Yeah, it can be. And and then he has the required amount of teachers teaching. I highly, it's an experience I highly recommend if anyone given the opportunity. It's a different way of
Did it
looking
kind
at
of
it.
light some kind of other musical fire in you? You know, go like, oh, there's another way of doing this, or
Well, I feel like I was already kind of on my own path, and not necessarily, maybe just affirmation, reaffirmation, you know, just kind of like, this is great to have this other foundation, this other way of building upon on music, instead of looking at it from a
yeah.
I mean, it's been funneled down, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it comes from the greats, and there's, you know, tons of information to learn from this stuff. But a lot of times also, it's amazing how many musicians kind of they stumble when they don't even just listen, or like you use the word empathetic. I think that's the perfect word for being a musician, especially with one that maybe doesn't go to school. I feel like if you can't read, or which is true, there's no such thing as I can kind of read. There's no such thing. Either you can read or you can't. If you can't read, and you don't have a lot of music theory, it doesn't mean you can't play music. And in fact, a lot of times musicians that don't have those things are usually, from what I've, and I'm not saying this is a way to go about it and forget everything you're doing and like not, you know, don't study other books or don't go to school. That's not at all what I'm saying. But there's other things that happen sometimes. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes you actually have better memory because you're not reading charts. You have to memorize everything.
You have to internalize it.
Yeah, internalize it, totally. And then on top of that, if you haven't internalized it or memorized it, you have to depend on your ear, you know?
So you're engaged in
Exactly, totally. So there are intuitive things that kind of naturally happen from those situations.
Yeah.
And I feel like Victor actually is you know, that's a huge part of his whole, I don't know if you've ever seen any of his lessons or the way he teaches and the stuff he talks about. It's almost never about music theory, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Music philosophy almost.
yeah, totally. Yeah.
But as a kind of little aside to that, you know, it is a language, you know, and it can be a written language or an oral language or to some extent a visual language.
Right. No, for sure.
And if you can read, then it just means you can maybe assimilate that stuff quicker.
Oh, absolutely.
And easier.
Well, there is a huge issue with musicians who are incapable of reading or writing music, and that is, it takes much longer to learn a song or teach a song.
Exactly.
Much longer. Or to convey an idea.
Totally.
You know, you can literally just scribble down a rhythmic pattern and hand to someone and be like, there's our song.
C#.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I mean, like my gig on Friday, like
Right.
we hadn't played a couple of those songs or weren't one of the songs, and I had done some charts on Sibelius, which I hate.
You're a finale guy?
No,
Or you just don't like the digital stuff?
I'm fine with digital stuff. I just suck at Sibelius.
You suck at
it. Long. But for like transpositions and checking.
Right.
With an
Right.
eight-piece band, it's for me.
Of course, right. It's a much larger band, right? It's not just a lead sheet. No, I forgot. That's right. I forgot. That's right.
It's all got like 3-part horns.
Yeah,
and
no, I
stuff,
know.
So
and even if it's just a small section that you're writing out, it could still take. Yeah, I know.
So having that that basic capacity to write out the melody and give it to the guys who can then read it on the gig.
You would never be able to show up on a gig and convey that much information to that many guys without it.
And we wouldn't be able to do the song. So
That's right.
even though it wasn't perfect, it was like...
No, agreed.
Got it across the line to some extent.
Well, and again, that stuff is still also included at Victor's camp too. He doesn't
Exactly. It's not like that's bad or this is good. It's just like,
absolutely.
It's all the same thing.
Right.
It's just you have to approach it, whether you read or not. You have to approach it with that same philosophy.
Well, he's trying to again associate music with other things that are going on, but also tie into what it is that you know. He's not telling you to forget anything. He's telling you to bring in other aspects of playing that sometimes get forgotten about or left aside because you become dependent on a chart in front of you. You become less of a musician on stage with other musicians. You're almost only like this, you know, and it happens a lot. I mean, when I do clinics at high schools, it's unbelievable the lack of communication in a high school band between other musicians in the band. Not all of them, there's some great, but middle school too, especially middle school, it's crazy. Like no one is No one's looking at anybody.
Because all the information's on the page,
I
apparently.
I know.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of like flipped on its head.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. Seeing a fair bit of ink
Oh yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
How, why, when? Where?
Yeah. I don't know. I got this one when I was 18. Actually, yeah. I got this right before a Victor Wooten camp. Actually, I remember now. I walked into. I was not babysitting because he was old enough at the time, but I was watching a friend. I was kind of being the big brother and in charge and taking him into tattoo shops when his parents were.
So you're being responsible.
Totally responsible. He wanted to go into this tattoo shop for some reason, and I was like, cool. We're driving around, and I was like, cool. Let's go check it out. And he wanted to get a tattoo really, really bad, and the guy wouldn't let him. And and he said, well, you're old enough. I'll buy your tattoo. You want to get a tattoo? And I was like, okay, sure.
So you took
I took his
shop and you got a tattoo.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That, as you can tell, that's why I quit drinking. That situation right there. No.
That's where it started.
Yeah, no, it was, and it went a long time before, many years before I got another tattoo. I wanted to get one. My mom cried immediately when she saw it. But I had already had like pierced ears and all of those things would have been not even possible if my father was still around. He was against all that type of stuff, 100%.
Body changing stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, he was raised Catholic and he was an altar boy, and any type of piercings or tattoos would have been a no-go. Yeah, and my mom but we had piercings somewhat early on, and she didn't hate it, but she was like, okay, I guess that's on you for the rest of your life. And I went a few more years until I got another one, and then it just kind of turned into, I don't know, it's
never been like a heavily thought out.
Well, no, if you can tell also, and like this is a drawing my father did. This is on my parents' bedroom wall. This is my mom with her arm around my brother and I, and this was on their bedroom wall. And there's another drawing here my father did, and I don't have very standard tattoos in terms of like aesthetically. I don't have it isn't traditional. It isn't
the style.
Right. It isn't like the mainstream stuff that most people are available to them. A lot of this stuff is kind of just
of the moment.
And none of this stuff you can really get off of a wall. Yeah. Heart.
That hurt?
It does hurt.
Yeah.
A lot of them hurt.
And punk jazz.
Yeah, punk jazz.
That's
and
the one.
Yeah, I got this one in Tokyo. I found this on the street in Tokyo. I got this one here. I found this on the street as well.
Crop
too.
circle.
Yeah, exactly. It does look like one, but that looks like a treble clef almost.
Yeah.
Which I thought was
when I just saw that part.
Totally
like,
right. I got this in New Zealand in September.
No worries.
No worries.
You really don't like yourself, do you?
No. To be honest, actually, I don't. For me, I actually look at in terms of more. The house I grew up in, my mom decorated the house, or not really decorated it. She collected things and put things in our house that it turned it almost more like into a museum of some sort. And it was extremely eclectic, and there were things from all over the world and all over the place, and tons of instruments, that we didn't even maybe play. If she saw an instrument, she would get it. At a yard sale, she'd pick it up and bring it to the house. So we had tons of stuff: banjo, accordion, trumpet, saxophone, drums, piano, upright bass, just tons of different random stuff in our house. Percussive stuff. Yeah, exactly. Nose flutes, all that stuff. And that was just the instruments and musical gear. There was tons of other stuff too. So I grew up in the way the house was. So
mishmash.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It was a controlled chaos for sure. It could be overwhelming for some people, for sure. But I love the
Where
house
you
that
grew up in it.
I love the house that I grew up in, and most people loved it too. But it was a lot to take in sometimes. You know, my mom was very open door to most musicians too, and most students. Anybody who wanted to come, you know, talk about my father and experience things firsthand and see certain things firsthand. My mom was always open and willing to share a certain perspective of my father that most people didn't know about. And but I kind of look at my body in terms of the house that I grew up in as well too. Okay. To be honest.
Did you get anything done in Melbourne?
Yeah, I got this here.
Oh, okay.
And then I got this Escher thing here, which is, let's see, I don't want to scratch it too much. This is
because the exhibit's on just now.
Yeah, MC Escher. Cool. And my mother was born in Indonesia, but she did most of her schooling or her formative years in Holland, in Den Haag. And grew up speaking Dutch. And in our house, we grew up with a lot of artwork as well. And MC Escher was one of her favorites. And I went to go see, before coming here, there was an Escher exhibit actually in Brooklyn, Industry City, in the same, literally the same building as Fodera, one over, like, a stairwell over. And I went over there to check that out. And then I get here and there's this amazing exhibit. Yeah. Again, it's almost like omens. It's like, Escher.
It's a sign.
I travel all the way around the world and I see another Escher exhibit, which was amazing, in conjunction with this really great Japanese artist Nendo. Right. And and I saw this. I was like, I love that. So I thought I'd get that. And then I got my dog tattooed here too, my little Chihuahua. I got it right here, Hendrix. You know.
That's cool.
Yeah, under my heart. It's perfect. Yeah. I'm a romantic like that.
And so, what, like you were saying, one of your kind of longest musical relationships is with Jeff Coughlin and the Mutet. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that band and what it is, because it's kind of chameleon, like, you listen to.
Well, hence the name. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. How's that influenced you?
Huge influence on my life. I mean, it actually, a lot of times when I talk. When I do interviews or I talk at clinics or I'm giving a clinic or even during lessons, and a lot of times there's this question that comes about talking about who do you listen to, who are you listening to now, who are your biggest influences. And to be honest, it almost always is the musicians I'm playing with at that time. It's not that I don't listen to a lot of stuff, but for me, my biggest influences are what I'm currently doing. Like, usually, if I'm playing with Cindy last week, I'm listening to her music. Yeah. I'm totally enveloping myself in the project of what I'm doing. So that's what I'm listening to. That's my biggest inspiration. Sure. That's, so having said that, because I've spent so much time with Jeff, he's a huge part of, my career and my path thus far, and not just work-wise, just in terms of the type of, anyways, he's been great. Yeah. I met Victor at a Larry Graham show, Graham Central Station show in New York City when I was 14. I was standing in the audience with my mom, my uncle Neil, Hiram Bullock, his girlfriend Jennifer, and we were like right off of the stage, and for some reason I was scoping around the room and I saw Victor standing a little bit further back behind us. That's so cool. And I was like elbowing my mom. I was like, I think that's Victor Wooten. She was like, go say hi to him. I'm watching the show. Larry Graham's on stage. Go say hi. What are you doing talking about? Larry Graham. Yeah, it's like, I'm watching this show. Go say hi. What do you think you're doing? And so I introduced myself, and I believe he was out on maybe not necessarily on a day, but he was out with Holly that night, the mother of his children, and I got to meet him there, and we kept in contact. And I went to go see his solo shows when it was just him and JD, and they were playing small little hole in the wall clubs in West Palm Beach.
Like bike wear.
Yeah, right, exactly, right, totally. And he wasn't filling out huge places at that point. I mean, he was known, but he was still working and doing his thing, and And so kept in touch, would see that and obviously see the Flecktones, and met Jeff at one of them. And then next thing I know, it was after one of the camps actually. Victor had never seen me play or heard me play prior to going to one of the camps.
Okay.
Which is also a huge thing about me going to one of those, was that ability to connect and be encouraged by him. And so apparently Jeff's bassist that he had recorded with or was planning on using was unavailable for this tour, 3-week tour. And Jeff asked Vic if he would be interested, and Vic said he couldn't do it because of his schedule. And then Jeff said, well, do you recommend anyone? And Vic said, well, this kid might be able to do it. And next thing you know, I'm crashing on a friend's couch in Tampa, practicing on my acoustic, Ovation acoustic. And
that's a workout.
Yeah, exactly. And I get a phone call from Jeff Coffin, and I knew who he was, and we had in passing communicated, but it was still like, Flecktones and association with Victor Wooten and that whole thing. And I was like, oh, hey Jeff, what's going on? And he was like, well, Vic, recommend you for this gig. And as soon as he said that, I was like, oh no, I have to take it now. Like, you don't turn down a gig that Victor Wooten recommends for you.
Yeah.
You don't ever do that. First of all, you don't turn down a gig. That's the world I live in. But especially if someone like Victor Wooten, recommends you for the gig. So
no pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And I couldn't read at all, to be honest. Very little, which was which is none basically, right? It's not like he throws something on in front of me on stage.
Oh,
Yeah. And he had all of these, because of his influence of being in the Flecktones at that point, he had a lot of odd meter stuff, some wacky tunes in terms of rhythmically that were just like, whoa, I really gotta like.
And how long before the tour was this?
Oh wow. How long ago was?
Like, do you have a couple of months to work the stuff up?
I think so, but I didn't have a computer, and I don't think Dropbox might have been around. I don't know. I didn't have any music until I got there, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
But he kept you on.
He did, and it's been a tumultuous relationship. No. He's one of my dear friends, and because of him, I've had the opportunity to play with many other musicians.
Yeah.
And like you said, the band has morphed and mutated with many different musicians in the band over the years.
Who's the drummer?
So originally, it was the first time was Tommy Gianpetro, alumni from University of Miami, actually. And then the second time out, or not the second time, but the second version of the group was with Dorico Watson. Do you know him?
Dorico was.
Yeah,
Dorico.
Yeah.
I thought it was Derico.
Yeah. Or Dorito. And then another version of it was with Roy, Future Man.
Right.
And then another version was with Jeff Sipe. And that's just the drummers. I mean, all the other instruments have changed multiple times too. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And I haven't been the only bassist either. He's used other bassists too as well. Adam Needy's done some tours. Alana Rockland, I don't know if you know who she is. She's a great bassist also. It's been a lot of great. And then on top of not only having the opportunity to play with a lot of great musicians, and also being associated with, I've been going to Nashville now for 20 years, which is great. But also having implemented the whole teaching aspect as well in terms of clinics. Almost every tour we've been on, we've had at least one clinic.
Go to some college or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. College, high school, middle school.
Cool.
Music stores. All over the place.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been great for me.
Good way to cover your costs.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And how did you arrive at the Federa? Were you were you 4-string at the start? Like, what was your?
Yeah, I'm still
How
4-string.
did
I just tried to ignore the other 2 strings. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I've actually known Fodera I've known Vinny and Joey for quite some time now. Actually, it was the same trip that when I met Victor,
right.
Oddly enough, or perfect actually, apropos. When I was 14, my mom brought us over to their shop, and I was slowly but surely becoming a fan of bass and bassists.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of who my father was.
Until you like
and is.
14, 15?
Yeah, it was like, for me, I was like starting to learn about what was going on outside of the music that I was,
Sure.
I was really into some of the alternative rock stuff. And
there was a really good death metal scene in Florida.
Yeah, there was. And so for me, I wasn't totally aware of like the Michael Mann rings and and Victor even, until I heard about him, and even Patitucci, to be honest. Even though I knew of Chick Corea, but I was more listening to the older stuff, I wasn't aware of the new electric stuff that was going on.
Yep.
To be honest, and but then I started like all of a sudden collecting like pamphlets from the bass companies, and reading Bass Player magazine for the first time.
Bass Player magazine.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I still never got a free subscription, but I'm just sorry. I'm just kidding. No hard feelings whatsoever. And it's only been 25 years late. No, I'm just. Never think about it. No, anyways. I started becoming a fan. So mom knew that, about it, and she wanted to take us over to the shop, and we met the guys, and I've kept a close relationship since. So yeah, that's it's been 23 years now, and they've been nothing but helpful and.
Have you had a few iterations before the one that you have?
So I had a bass given to me on my 21st birthday.
Right.
Which was an amazing gift, and
from Fodera.
Yeah, which I returned immediately. No, I'm just kidding. It was a fretless 5-string Emperor, and a gorgeous bass, and then I was living in. Was I in New York yet? I don't know if I was in New York yet. No, I didn't have it. I was still in California, but I was in New York, and I brought it with me. And I told him, listen, guys, I think I want to get this fretted.
Can you put frets in?
Yeah, can you put
fret? Hard.
Yeah,
like,
it is way too hard.
dumb.
Why would anyone ever want to play fretless? It's so out of tune constantly.
Yeah.
And, yeah. All these weird slides and
stuff.
stuff.
Has anyone ever even made it work sound good? I don't know. Like.
Right. And because I wanted to play it more. And you can play it in a lot of scenarios, obviously, as my father has shown you, and even Les Claypool, who slaps on a fretless. It can be used in many different things.
Gary Willis.
And Gary Willis, obviously, of course. But for me, I felt like fretted was more of where I was going, especially if the chordal stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
That's right. So that was kind of more the direction I was going, and then we went a while with. I didn't actually have a Fodera. But I mean, we were still hanging out, and at one point I had this Lauricella, Joey's last name.
Oh, okay.
I had this Lauricella bass that was a prototype of this, which they turned into F clef basses is what they turned into eventually.
Yep.
And I had a prototype of that, which I played for many years, a 5-string.
Like a jazz kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my main bass for quite some time.
Okay.
And then I lost it. And I didn't have a bass for a while, and I borrowed my friend Mike Bendy's 5-string Imperial, and I used that, and that's what I had to borrow it because I got the Yellow Jackets gig, and I needed a bass.
Can you do this gig? Yeah.
Let me get a bass.
I just gotta get a bass. Like, wait, what?
And yeah, exactly, and. Eventually they were like, okay, I think you're old enough. You're grown up enough. You should own your own bass. And they were like, and you should get a 6-string. Because a lot of the stuff we were playing was obviously half slip.
Yep.
based, for lack of a better term, and it was more conducive to play a 6-string with a low B because I was playing a 5-string with a high C. So who by the way, who started that first? Was it
5-string with high C?
Yeah, that was Dominique, right?
Yeah.
I think he was the first, maybe, or was there someone else, or what's his name? Maybe. Anyways, that thing which.
Igor Saavedra.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
He's on 8-string now.
Oh no way.
Yeah.
Oh.
But he's been doing that for a long time.
Yeah. Anyways, they were like, yeah. So I was borrowing a Federa. I knew them for quite some time, and I was like, hey guys, I think I need to get a bass actually. So we went through the process of building this thing for me, and through our relationship, it made a lot of sense. And living in New York and having them right there,
sure.
and being able to
So did you go around and like tap on the wood?
Yeah,
and
did all that stuff. Yeah.
And is it a standard model? Like, is it a?
Pretty much, yeah. It's an Emperor 2 body, but it has quite a few more frets on it. There's no space at all for slapping. I gave up slapping a long time ago. I occasionally, when in the moment, I play bass solely on, again, bass, great, on, the moment, what's happening on stage, what the music, I'm for the music first, what is required at that moment. And occasionally I might slap, and it does happen. It's very rare. But I wanted more frets, and so yeah, a little bit more of a cutout, more frets, much wider spacing. The spacing on the thing, you played it, it's massive.
Yeah, it's like a freeway.
Yeah, it is. But it's 33-inch scale, so it's shorter, so I can compensate for that.
It is. It's surprisingly playable.
Yeah, I know.
And you got flat ones?
Flat wounds on it,
Sadowski flat ones?
Diodario.
Diodario flat ones?
Yeah.
They look similar.
Yeah. So you play Sadowski, I guess.
Yeah, I played Sadowski strings a lot, and then I just recently got into Ken Smith strings.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they do these like bright nickels.
Yeah, killer.
Really like
killer.
For the 70s jazz bass thing.
Yeah,
really
killer.
Consistent.
Yeah, that's basically, for the most part, I almost always went back to nickel for some reason. Occasionally I would string up steel on those, or any of my basses, to be honest. But putting those flat ones on this bass last year has been... The only thing is that now I don't know how to write off all the strings I purchased. No, I'm just kidding. Shit, please edit that out.
That's going to be the promo code.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man. Yeah, but I haven't changed them in months, and it feels great, and it has a certain tone to it. And the neck pickup on that bass, because of the width of the string spacing, the bridge can sometimes miss occasionally, somewhat, a little bit, or it doesn't have the same volume, it seems like.
I think that's normal.
Yeah, right. But the neck on that bass with the flat wounds, it sounds huge. It sounds massive.
Yeah.
And through a large amp, nice stack. I mean, it sounds great, and even passive, it's crazy.
And you generally play passive, you were saying?
Yeah, pretty much only passive, unless there's a gig that requires it or a recording session that requires it.
And some pedals?
Yeah, I have kind of a bunch of different things I've been using recently, but I have go-tos that I kind of have always.
You got like some chains or?
Yeah, so right now, the one that I have with me right now is, I have this pedal board that I put together for the A$AP Rocky gig, and I have my tuner that goes into my Boss synth, and then from that it goes into which one is the Red Witch, I think, or no, the DOD. I think I have the meat box. Yeah,
the speaker destroyer.
Yeah, that's right. Which when I was playing with A$AP Rocky on these huge festivals, it was massive. It was crazy. Like, yeah, no, it was everyone would be like, "What? How are you getting that sound?" They couldn't believe it. You know,
you're just like,
yeah, totally. Yeah, and then I have what else do I have on there? Shit, I can't remember.
so no like chorus or reverb or delays or anything?
So I do have that at
little
when I play with my band back home and some of my own projects like Hipster Assassins and Social Experiment. I have a few more things that I add to it. Yeah. I have a couple. I have the Ring Thing by EHX Electro Harmonics, and then I have Cathedral also by them.
With reverby.
Yes, delay-ish thing too, and I love those two things. It's nothing too. They're not too complex at all.
For textural,
Yeah,
and
totally.
obviously with some kind of octave or something like that. You get into.
Well, the Ring Thing is kind of my go-to. If I'm gonna bring one pedal with me, if I'm going out for a stint on something, I almost always bring that.
Yeah, right.
Because I can get a chorus sound out of it. I can get an octave sound out of it. I can get a bit crunch kind of sound out of it. I can get like a detuned thing, chorusy, but more detuned, and it's also a ring modulator, hence the name Ring Thing. So to me, that's kind of my go-to. I love having that thing with me.
Yeah.
Because I can get a lot done with it. Because for me, it's all about simplicity, not having to learn too much about too many pedals. But I'm getting more into it recently, and.
I know Kevin Scott.
Yeah.
He's into his.
He gets some
pedals.
great sounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're all influenced greatly by Tim LaFay, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those two guys, for anyone who's wanted to check out some pedals, and Juan already too, actually, is he's the go-to.
I bought so many pedals because of pedals and effects. I mean,
I know. Yeah.
But they've all been, I've gotten it's
totally worth. Yeah, it's totally worth it. And for me, that's the other thing too, and that's a great thing to touch on for me. Also, is it's great to be inspired by pedals, and it's great to have a texture. There's nothing more. I'm more jealous than a keyboard player going like this, boop, and all of a sudden they have a great sound, and they're playing their butt off because it sounds great because they're inspired again immediately.
Definitely.
And although there can be a trap when it comes to that, because sometimes you fall into this is my sound, or I need this pedal to get to a place, which is unfortunate in some scenarios. So it's great to go back and forth. I love going to rehearsals without any of my pedals. I love going on tours without any of my pedals and balancing it, going back and forth.
Yeah.
And occasionally having it.
You should be able to kind of figure out a way of making it work without them.
That's right, absolutely.
But if you can have them.
And there's no better way to work on your technique too than to not have pedals, because as soon as you rely on an effect or a sound that can dictate how you feel, then you're ignoring some other aspects of your playing. Yeah. Or you can be.
They are fun though.
Yeah. Yeah, they are fun, absolutely, and expensive.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on like eBay or whatever.
Yeah.
Grab stuff. You buy stuff secondhand, you can sell it for.
That's so true. Yeah. And also, having said that, having hated on effects pedals, now the other upside though, or if there's something to getting to an upside with playing with pedals, I highly recommend practicing with them. And what I mean by practicing with them is not doing your practice or what you would be practicing on your instrument. I mean practicing the box itself.
Yeah, get to know it.
Like really mess with it. I've been known, and it's the worst. It'll come out of the box, and I'll play it, and I'll set a bunch of settings, and that's it. And then I don't touch it for years.
And then you turn up to the gig and something's changed, and you're like, that's not right.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, spend time with it. Spend a day with it at least.
Yeah.
And really get to know, and go back to it also. Even if you've had it for a year or two, go back to it and spend a whole day with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's next for you after Melbourne?
I'm gonna go back to New York, and I'm gonna go for a bike ride. And
Central Park.
Yeah, exactly. I had some gigs lined up for next month.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how many of them are going on at the moment. I'm pretty sure I have a Hipster Assassins gig.
This is like March.
Yes, March. Yes, March 15th or 16th, I believe. I'm at 55.
16th is my birthday.
Okay. Happy birthday,
So,
early
you know,
birthday.
if you want
yeah.
to buy me a present.
There you go. A plane ticket?
Yeah. No, just a ticket for the show. I'll get a plane ticket.
You're on the list. You're on the list. That's easy. But I'll be getting ready. Also, April, I'm going out with this project venture with Mark Sherman on vibes and Chase Baird on saxophone. He's been playing with Antonio Sanchez.
Okay.
And he's got a great project of his own, a great new album that he put out too. And then Mike Clark on drums.
Cool.
We recorded an album last year or the year before. I can't remember. Anyways, we're going to be doing a Europe tour in April. And then I get back in May. I'm going to go out with Cindy again in Tokyo.
Nice.
And it's a month-to-month thing. And I fill it up with other random stuff. I play with a lot of different... You know, I've been doing some stuff with Chris Bullock from Snarky Puppy with his own project.
Oh, yeah.
He released a new album recently too, which is great. And I do some stuff with this band called Jazz's Fish. That is, it's a fun, interesting band with a lot of great musicians in it, and it's never the same lineup. You can tell by the name, it's Fish music, and I guess it's done in a jazz way. I don't know. But it's mostly us just getting together and playing a lot of music with a bunch of friends getting together. It can be fun, and I tour with that occasionally in small little areas. And then I also have this other project, which I'll be working on when I get back home, called Elliot's Girls Chorus, which is this. It's this female choir, all female choir, with a guitar and bass, and it's basically punk music-ish. Romantic punk music.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Romantic punk music.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different moving parts. I think there's some other things too that I'm doing occasionally here and there.
And like your musical, your musical outlets are as eclectic and varied as the house you grew up in and your tattoos.
With my birthmarks? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is.
It's a common thread.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, because I never went to school, I feel like, I don't mean to keep harping on that like it means anything other than just, I love the ability to go out and play different genres of music with different people.
It's all music.
Yeah, absolutely. And work on different aspects of my playing. For me, it's never about how little a bass part is, because actually, to be honest, some of those are the hardest gigs for me to really work on, because I've focused primarily on tone and dynamics, and note duration, and like really try to nail the parts, and I'll be doing stuff with Onyx too, probably, and Jeff Coffin also, Onyx Collective and Jeff Coffin. It's all over the place, and spin-offs from all that stuff too. But yeah, I love being able to play all genres of music, because you can learn something from any of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
To be honest,
there's pocket and everything.
Yeah, even country music. In fact, bluegrass music is crazy. Heavy. Yeah. Heavy. Yeah.
We better wrap it up there,
Cool.
because you got some beach time.
I do have some beach time before I go back to New York.
Again, man, thanks very much.
Craig, thank you for having me.
It's
Pleasure.
been great having
Absolutely.
you on. Felix Pastorius, everybody.
Cool.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.